Hello world, I'm Alvin. Welcome to Tit for Tat, disNdat, where you and I talk about hot button topics. Politics, current events, a little bit of celebrity gossip, some shadow cooking, and where the intersectionality between the Black, LGBT, LMNOP, and Het society meet. So grab a drink, sit yourself down, and join me for this tit for tat talk. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today here on Tit for Tat, disNdat. Today, let's talk a little bit about tops, bottoms, verse, the American Caste System. Why does it still exist today, and how does it affect our politics? Where do the gay men fit into this hierarchy of tops, bottoms, verse? What about the political spectrum? Republicans, Democrats, Independents. The gay community as a whole mirrors heteronormative society. There is the hierarchy of top, which typically tops, are the ones who take on the more dominant or active role during sex, basically penetrative sex, just like with het men and women. The man is usually the dominant, and the woman is usually more submissive, I guess, unless you get into the bondage and discipline dominatrix aspect of it, but we're not talking about that. So we may talk about that at another time. But with gay men, top is considered to be the more masculine, more dominant, and equated with masculinity. In reality, that's not always true. There are also feminine tops, but there is a hierarchy, and tops are more sought after by other gay men. Things may be changing, but right now, still, if you call yourself a top, then you're considered at the top rungs of the gay social ladder. Sometimes even above wealth or social status. Bottoms, that generally refers to the person who is being penetrated, and they are considered by most gay men. If you're getting penetrated and you're called and you consider yourself a bottom or labeled a bottom, then you're considered to be more feminine uh, or more like women, and also called upon to take the more submissive role. And again, that's not always true because there are also a lot of masculine bottoms. But according to gay society, gay society, then I guess you would you you would need to be dominated even over wealth and social status. Now, verse or versatile, what we abbreviate to verse, those are guys that are comfortable in both roles, top or bottom, and can be penetrated or do the penetrating. Now, again, there are exceptions to the rule, but even with that, gay men that are versatile are still considered to be less masculine than what tops are, even though guys that are verse are also can they can also display their masculine and feminine side, or they can be pretty much masculine, or they can be pretty much feminine, or they fall somewhere in between. To me, it's the best of both worlds. So with verse, they're the more flexible of the two, the top or the bottom. It can allow for really a broader range of sexual experiences to me. But anywho, sometimes it comes down to just preference. I think most gay men are versatile, but it is important to note that these gay men sexual preferences, sexual roles, whatever you would like to call it, it's not rigid, it's not set in stone. And and at any given time we may identify our sexual preferences differently at various times with different partners we're with. But ultimately, it's about what feels right for each of you, whether you're top, bottom, or verse. But there is a caste system in the gay community, especially among gay men. But also, to add note to that, uh, white men are considered at the top, and black men are considered at the bottom, and all the other ethnicities fall somewhere in between. But black gay men are mainly fetishized by white men. Not all, but a lot. Let me pull up my notes here so I can stay on topic. So let's move into our comparison between Nazi Germany and the caste system. Although I know that the caste system originally originated uh, in India, It really exists all around the world in every country, every nation. There's some form of social class status hierarchy, upper class, middle class, lower class, and that really affects the world. The comparison between Nazi Germany and the caste system, particularly as it pertains to social stratification and discrimination, can be examined through the lens of how both systems categorize people and enforce social hierarchies. Let's start off with number one, racial hierarchy. Nazi Germany operated on a racial ideology that prioritized the Aryan race and deemed other groups, particularly Jews, Romani peoples, and others as inferior. This ideology justified discrimination, segregation, and ultimately violence against these groups. Number two, social segregation. The Nazis implemented laws and policies that restricted the rights of those deemed undesirable. This included prohibitions on marriage and social interactions between Aryans and non-Aryans, akin to how caste systems can dictate social interactions based on status. Number three, dehumanization. The Nazis dehumanized targeted groups, leading to systemic violence, including the Holocaust. This dehumanization process is often a critical feature of caste systems, where lower castes may be subjected to social ostracism and violence. So let's contrast and compare Nazi Germany to the caste systems here in the United States and around the world. Number one, social stratification. In caste systems, individuals are born into specific social groups, which dictate their social status, occupation, and interactions with others. This inherent hierarchy can lead to systemic discrimination against those in lower castes. Number two, endogeny and social interactions. Similar to the racial laws in Nazi Germany, caste systems often enforce endogeny, where individuals are expected to marry within their caste, thereby limiting social mobility and interaction across caste lines. Number three, discrimination and violence. Those in lower castes may face social stigma, discrimination, and violence, paralleling the treatment of marginalized groups in Nazi Germany. So in conclusion, while the specifics and historical context of Nazi Germany and caste systems are distinct, both illustrate how societies can create and enforce hierarchies that lead to discrimination and violence against certain groups. The mechanisms of social stratification, dehumanization, and the enforcement of social boundaries are common themes that can be observed in both systems. Let me pull up my notes here so I can stay on topic. The American Caste System. Why does it still exist today? And how does it affect our politics? Well, it's a social hierarchy. It's deeply rooted in race, class, power, and greed. Its origins can be traced back to the colonial era, somewhere around the 17th through the 18th century, if I recall. Number one, the European settlers created a social hierarchy with the introduction of slavery, which caused a big racial divide, with the slaves belonging to the lowest rung of the totem pole or social status, shall I say. This period established the precedent for racial stratification, which eventually evolved into a more formalized caste system. Number two, the American Revolution and Independence, 1775 through 1783. Even though the Founding Fathers talked a good game about freedom and equality during the American Revolution, those principles pretty much excluded the slaves and the Indians, as they were so called back then. The new so-called nation's foundational documents, one being the Constitution, allowed for the continuation of slavery and the marginalization of indigenous populations, reinforcing existing social hierarchies. Number 3, the Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861 through 1877. The Civil War, which eventually resulted in the abolition of slavery, which in turn brought about the Reconstruction era, which was also marked by significant backlash, which is how we ended up with the Black Codes and the Jim Crow laws in the South. These laws institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination, creating a rigid caste system that persisted well into the 20th century, and I would still say even today. Number 4, Civil Rights Movement, 1950s through the 1960s. As we fought for our civil rights and sought to dismantle the systemic racism and legal inequalities that have plagued American society since its inception, we were dragged, cursed, and beaten. On the way to getting the landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed. Although it was aimed at promoting equality, it fell short because social and economic disparities between racial groups remain, perpetrating a form of caste-like division even till today. Number 5, economic disparities and globalization, somewhere around the late 20th century. Economic changes, globalization, and deindustrialization contributed to the widening gap between the wealthy and the poor, affecting all racial groups, but disproportionately impacting lower income communities of color, especially Black people. This economic stratification has reinforced existing social hierarchies and created new forms of exclusion. So why does it still persist today? Number 1, economic inequality. The concentration of wealth among the top echelon of society creates barriers for upward mobility for lower and middle classes, especially among marginalized racial groups. This economic divide often correlates with access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities. Number 2, racial discrimination. Systematic racism continues to manifest in various forms, including housing segregation, employment discrimination, and disparities in the criminal justice system. These ongoing inequalities reinforce the social stratification established historically. Number 3, cultural narratives. Stereotypes and cultural narratives that perpetuate notions of inferiority and superiority based on race and class contribute to the persistence of the caste system. These narratives can influence individual behavior, societal expectations, and policy decisions. Number 4, upper class. The upper class often retains significant economic power and social influence, insulating themselves from the challenges faced by lower classes. Their privilege can perpetuate a sense of entitlement and reinforce existing social hierarchies. Number 5, the middle class. The middle class experiences pressures from economic instability and rising costs of living, leading to the sense of anxiety about maintaining their status. Racial and socioeconomic factors can create divisions within the middle class, impacting solidarity and collective action. Number 6, the lower class. The lower class, particularly among marginalized racial groups, faces systemic barriers that limit access to resources and opportunities. This includes inadequate education, job opportunities, and health care, leading to cycles of poverty that are difficult to escape. How does it affect our politics? Number 1, policy decisions. Legislation often reflects the interests of the upper class, with tax cuts and deregulation benefiting wealthier individuals, while social safety net programs may be underfunded or stigmatized. Number 2, rhetoric and campaigning. Political discourse may exploit caste divisions, using race and class as tools to mobilize votes or justify policies. This can include appeals to law and order that disproportionately impact communities of color or economic populism that may overlook racial inequities. Number 3, voter suppression. Tactics aimed at suppressing voters in marginalized communities, such as stringent ID laws or gerrymandering, highlight the intersection of caste and political power. This can perpetrate disenfranchisement and maintain existing power structures. In summary, the American caste system has deep historical roots and continues to impact society across various dimensions. Its persistence can be attributed to a combination of economic, racial, and cultural factors, with significant implications for social classes and political dynamics. Understanding this system is crucial for addressing the ongoing inequalities that shape American life. Stratification refers to the arrangement or classification of something into different layers, levels, or categories. In a social context, it often describes the way society is structured into hierarchies based on various factors such as wealth, race, education, or power. This can lead to unequal access to resources and opportunities among different groups. It categorizes individuals into hierarchical groups based on factors such as occupation, social status, and heredity. The caste system often influences various aspects of life, including marriage, social interactions, and economic opportunities. In many contexts, castes are grouped into broader categories such as higher castes, often associated with greater social status and privilege, and lower castes, which may face social and economic disadvantages. The caste system has deep historical roots and can significantly impact social dynamics, cultural practice, and individual identity. While caste systems vary in their specifics across different cultures, they generally serve to maintain social order and, at times, can perpetuate inequality and discrimination. In recent years, there have been movements and legal efforts aimed at addressing caste-based discrimination and promoting social equality. Okay, peoples, I'm going to bounce here for a little bit and head on down to the gym, try to get in a 35 to 45-minute workout real quick, and I'll be back where we will pick up on our little bit of gossip segment. And after that, our oh no you didn't. So I'm going to make a pot, or shall I say, I'm going to make a gallon of sweet tea. Hey everyone. So back from the gym, and I am about to make me some lunch. And while I do that, we will talk a little bit of gossip. Kim Burrell. I'm gonna have some goldfish and a medley of nuts from Tom Thumb, their signature bread. That's a mixture of dried cranberries, roasted cashews, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seed. with a little bit of sea salt. Okay. So let me wash off my tomato. My sandwich is going to be ham and salami with some Velveeta cheese, lettuce, and mayonnaise. So while we do that, let's talk about Kim Burrell. Kim Burrell is going to write, or is writing, a book on her life with Whitney Houston. I don't know what she's actually going to say in this book, but I believe what she's going to say is a lie, because in this interview she did with Fox 5 DC, she says that Whitney Houston gave her permission to tell her story, to tell Whitney's story after Whitney's death, which I don't believe that's true. So that's allegedly Whitney gave her permission. I don't believe that. And I don't believe Sissy Houston gave her permission either, although she doesn't need Sissy's permission. But I guess considering she's supposed to be a good friend of the family and was supposed to have been a good friend of Whitney Houston's, well, writing this book does not sound like she's a good friend of Whitney Houston's. It sounds like she's out there writing this book so she can make money off of it. And so what I would say is, that's my, I don't know if y'all hear that, but that's my son up there playing his video games, and you can hear him all the way down here yelling and whoever he's online with. But yelling and screaming. But I would just say, Kim, let Whitney rest. Let her rest in peace. Quit going trying to exhume her. You're not being a friend. And you probably need to worry about your own past and your own life story and leave Whitney out of it, because rumor has it on the street that, well, somebody was a big old Fruit Loop that you were involved with. And unless you were actually deep sea diving with Whitney Houston, I would say that leave her alone. Let's hear your thoughts.
I love your music, and I also love your relationship with fellow superstars. I mean, people are still talking about your storied sisterhood with the late, great Whitney Houston. We know what you gave her and advice you gave her during her time here. What message of love and life did she give you, Kim?
Oh, my God, it is countless. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I am finally getting that out. I'm writing a book, Whitney and Me. We had a life.
Wow.
She was my sister, and it's always hard to talk about her. I miss her so very much, especially during the holidays. She was filled with laughter and so much joy. I miss her every day. Recently we just funeralized her precious mother. Yeah. And the only reason, you guys, that I am able to release this book, from the loyalty of me and Whitney's friendship and sisterhood, she asked me to promise her, and she promised me before she left, that we would not put these books out with the details of what it is we know until we could. And I'll just say this, now I can.
Yeah.
Look, me and Marissa are both like, oh,
gosh, you have her blessing, even spiritually, that has been confirmed, that this is the appointed time for the release of the book. I hear you.
Allegedly. I think you're a lying charlatan. Before we delve into our topic, let's check in on Tyrone and see how he's doing out there in the streets. on gathering us up some subscribers. Looks like he's still out there with them same old ratchet clothes he had on last week on that same street. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's bounce. So I'm about to get out of here. Before I leave, let's have a little chuckle for the week.
Babe,
Yeah?
you have 4 missed calls.
4 missed calls from who?
Office electrician.
Why is that guy disturbing me? See, I don't need an electrician this week.
Okay.
God bless Africa. God bless Africa. You dey give me joy, you dey cure my feet.
Babe,
Yeah?
the office electrician has been calling. You even sent a text.
What is it?
Said he's pregnant.
So the guy is cheating, and she said, that's crazy. I guess it's like hell. I guess that's when you're in bed, sleep with your boyfriend, and then his phone starts going off at 1 o'clock in the morning with text message after text message. And he picks up the phone, looks at the text messages, and puts the phone back down. A few minutes later, I guess because he didn't respond to the text, maybe the person decides to call. And he picks up the phone and yells at the person on the other end and says, "Hey man, I'm asleep," and then throws the phone down on the floor, turns back over, and then proceeds to wrap his arms and body around you and go back to sleep. Ay, ay, ay. And you say, "Babe, what was that all about?" And he says, "Oh, that was my cousin wanting to borrow money." Shit. Well, I'm going to get out of here for today. And I really appreciate you all for joining me today. And please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye, everybody.
Almost made you love me. Almost made you cry. Almost made you happy, babe. Didn't I? You almost had me thinking you were turned around. But everybody knows almost doesn't count. Almost heard you saying you were finally free. What was always missing for you, babe, you found it in me. But you can't get to heaven half off the ground. Everybody knows almost doesn't count. I can't keep on loving you 1 foot outside the door. I hear a funny hesitation of a heart that's never real. go. Wanna know it, I'll be that kind of man. You came real close, but every time you build me up, you only let me down. But everybody knows, almost doesn't count, almost doesn't count. Can't keep on waiting, can't keep on trying. Everybody knows, almost doesn't count. I can't keep on loving, wanna put outside the door. I hear funny hesitation of heart that's never really sure. Can't keep on trying. No. Looking for more. Know that I could give you what you came here for. Maybe you'll be sorry. Maybe you'll be cold. Maybe you come running back, babe, from the cruel world. Almost convinced me you're gonna stick around. But everybody